All right, we'll go from here into the reports from the 4 different clubs in our district that receive Centennial grants. And Terry Turry, the chair of the Centennial portion of the conference, is going to introduce these people. So take it away, Terry.
Thank you, Debbie. Hi, everybody. It's so great to see all your faces. I wish it was in person, but love to all of you. First off, I just want to thank Governor Jeannie for the opportunity to serve this biennium as the Centennial Anniversary Coordinator. It was a pleasure being able to see all of you and going through this journey together with other Zonta leadership members from District 8. So I commend all the clubs for all the activities that they have been able to partake in this biennium to honor Zonta and its 100 years. And a highlight of this biennium for celebrating those 100 years is the opportunity to hear from 4 clubs who received grants from Zonta International. And I'm going to introduce each one individually. So I think the first one we're going to hear from is Natalie Stifler from the Zonta Club of Blackfoot, and they partnered with Operation Shield. So Natalie.
Natalie, you need to unmute yourself. We can't hear you. You need to unmute yourself. We can't hear you.
Okay, can you hear me now? Thank you. Maureen is helping with the slide presentation. Maureen, you want to say anything? I guess not. But we have been working with Operation Shield since last year. Matthew Smith is the head of that, and we feel like we're helping to make a difference. They are in the process of trying to get a safe house in our region for victims who've been sex trafficked. It's going to be in an anonymous location, but it will be in our region. So we're excited about that. We used the $5,000 grant to give to Operation Shield, and they are continuing to fundraise to build the shelter and are looking for support from members in the community. The main amount of the grant that we gave was given to help with counseling, so that when these kids are in the process of getting out of sex trafficking, they need a specialized counseling. So the counselors have to be trained in trauma counseling, and it's receiving a lot of success. These are some of the people that are helping. Our club is just one of many that are helping to get funding for the program and for the building of the shelter, a safe home. They are working with victim services and support, law enforcement, and community education, and raising awareness for the specialized victim services and specialized help that these children, young people need to recover from being sex trafficked. It's amazing that people right in our own area don't know that kids are being sex trafficked right from I-15. So we're doing a lot to help raise awareness in the community. Matthew spoke at Bingham Memorial Hospital, and that was well attended last January. Then at our Eastern Idaho State Fair, he was presenting at the Needlecraft building, and it was a full house. Lots of people were interested in finding out more information about what's going on in this much needed service. Law enforcement is an important part of this. They have to investigate and watch for signs to know that children are being sex trafficked. And unfortunately, sometimes the victims, because they're in prostitution, are thrown in jail. But in a way, this is a way to get them away from their trafficker and off of drugs, because if you're in jail, you're not being put through like brainwashing, and maybe you can clear your head a little bit. So Matthew, I know, has helped many young people to get away from and out of this situation in our region. They now have 120 clients per week in states, including Idaho, Montana, Nevada, and Utah. They just hired 3 new employees, 2 new counselors, and a nurse practitioner. Some of these statistics of clients, some of them have to be seen on a daily basis just to get them out of the trauma. So 120 sounds like a lot, but not really when you think about in Montana alone, 12 to 17 young girls have disappeared, and they think they're in sex trafficking because there's 5 reservations where kids are missing from. So it's way worse than people even know. Matthew says most of the kids are entrapped through the internet. So he encourages parents to be aware of what their kids are doing on social media. We feel like that this special therapy is different than regular counseling. And so Zonta is partnering with Operation Shield and feels like this is a step in the right direction. I'm grateful for the support of Zonta and giving us the opportunity to help these children. The life expectancy of a child that's sex trafficked is only 7 years. So it's important. Are there any questions? That was pretty fast, wasn't it? Like running down the rapids, but.
That was great. Thank you, Natalie. It's, what an outstanding program. And I know that the Zonta Club of Blackfoot is honored to be able to provide this money to that program. And sad that we need the program, but it sure is nice that we can help. Next up is—
Can I ask a question?
Sure, absolutely.
So how long does the Centennial Grant last for, and then what will they do for money afterwards is my question, is how do you create something that lasts as you roll out of the grant period?
I don't have an answer for that. I know that was something that Zonta International was going to look at as we go forward out of this biennium into the next. I have yet to hear from my liaison as to if those grants are going to still continue to be offered in the next biennium. I think it's a great idea. I hope we can do that.
I would like to add that Matthew says they're trying to be more self-funded because $5,000 is just a little pittance in the bucket of what they need. But just raising awareness is helping people to understand the severity of the problem.
Great. Okay, so community-based funding because more people understand the problem, just as Vicki was just telling us.
Yes.
Okay. Any more questions for Natalie? Okay, thanks again, Natalie. Oh, Pat, did you have a question? Oh, you're doing the high five. All right, got it. Okay. Good job, Natalie. Thank you. So next up is Zonta Club of Olympia, and we will be hearing, I believe, from Shelley Willis and Margaret, is it Hollinger?
Yes.
Okay.
Well, we're really excited. The Centennial Grant was a great boost to a program, but we've been promoting it for over 4 years now and have had a lot of successes. The next right step is promoting self-sufficiency by providing aid to women. We're providing a step up, not a handout. And we're filling a gap by supporting women who are motivated to change their future, but hit a financial road bump that might derail them from self-sufficiency. So it's not designed to pay their rent every month, but it's designed to help them out when a car breaks down, or they need birth certificates to get into housing, or many other things. And we'll go more into the ways that we've helped many women a little later. So we're filling a service gap. There is a lot of money out in the community, but usually they're wraparound funding programs, or they're limited to a small amount, or they only cover one area, such as utilities or rent. But a big problem in the service gap is that women in poverty are having to drive around or use their limited cell phone minutes to just get the help that they need. So this program has really filled a gap in our community. And how we did it was Zonta Club of Olympia teamed up with Family Education and Support Services, and Shelley will talk in a moment. And what we did was we said, hey, as a club, we're not able to make moment by moment decisions on who needs money, and we need to team up with somebody who's already on the front line, who's already providing the services, and is working with the people that need the help right then. And so we set criteria for how Family Education and Support Services screens applicants, and then they have the authority to give money to the recipients that meet those guidelines. And then they pay for the service directly to the agency or the vendor, so that the woman's never given the money directly, but we know that what the money that we've given goes directly for that purpose, and that it's well stewarded through Family Education and Support Services. So it's really allowed us as a small service organization to have a more powerful way that we can be right on the front line, giving as things are needed. So this collaboration is so super exciting, and we've been having great success. And going back on the Centennial Grant was a great boost, but we do lots of fundraising. So I really appreciated the presentation earlier with some additional ideas. Our goal, we set goals, although there was resistance to setting goals. We have a goal to provide at least $2,000 every month to Family Education and Support Services that they can then pass out in these micro grants. And we've been able to meet and exceed that goal. And there is a ton of power in setting a goal, and it's scary to set a goal, but once you do that, then you have a way to communicate with people about what you're doing and why you're doing, and what you really need from them. So we're calling these micro grants because they are a one-time gift, but they're really designed to help women access education or training, or something specific that's going to stabilize employment, transportation, or housing. So we pay one time. A woman can only access a grant one time in her lifetime, and it's up to $500, and our grants average about $260, $270 per person. Some have been as low as $25, some have been as high as $500. The key here is to have confidence that you're really meeting the need that was expressed to you by the woman. So we're paying directly to the vendor agency, not to the woman. We're helping them solve their problems directly. And we created a standardized process that Family Education and Support Services uses so that as Zontians, we're comfortable that our money is being stewarded in a way that we intended it to. And it's really working well. So women 18 years or older get connected through FES. They reside in Thurston, Mason, or Lewis County. I think we've updated it. And they complete a screening, survey, and interview. So this process, we've been, for over 4 years, we've been providing grants through this way. And
sometimes there's barriers that are very financial, and those barriers can become completely unsurmountable by these parents who are trying everything they can because they don't have access to funds. And so knowing that we had this thing in our back pocket that we could pull out when we're like, what else do we do? There is no program we can find that pays for the specific thing that this mom really needs in order to get moving in her life to her goals.
About 6 months ago, I had a barrier, a suspended license, and I'm on a very fixed income. I've got 4 children, and I did all the math, and I went to all the places that I owed the money to, and I saw on paper exactly what I needed to get this license, and it almost made me feel like it was impossible. Like, just a heavy heart, like, I've done all the work that I can do with my hands, but how am I going to be able to come up with this money? And so, like, what else am I supposed to do in order to achieve this goal and pass this fee? And talking with my PCAP worker, I was informed that there was a program called the Next Right Step. And I said, what is that? Well, we've got funding. And the moment I had the license and I had the insurance and I was legit driving with, yeah, it was amazing. I don't have to look over my shoulder anymore. I have a lot less stress in my daily life.
So I get chills. I've watched that video a million times, but it's still, you know, just really, I hope you all could hear that and just feel the power of this program and how it truly is making a difference. And it's not something that they're getting over and over again. It's really helping them over a financial hurdle. And so Shelley Willis is now going to talk about some of the successes that we've had in the program. And take it away, Shelley.
Thank you. Hi, I'm Shelley Willis, Executive Director of Family Education and Support Services, and also a Zontian for nearly 25 years, and very honored to do so. What I wanted to say is that this funding is different than the emergency funding that our agency typically gives out to folks. We're not trying to patch holes and get someone's utility paid for a month or those kind of urgency grants. These are extraordinary women becoming self-sufficient against all odds. We're here to lift women up into the next step, not to patch a hole, but truly help make a difference. One of the cases was a woman who just simply needed to move into an apartment. She had the first, it was a domestic violence situation. She had the down payment, she had her monthly rent, but she learned that to do a background check, she had to have copies of each of her kids' birth certificates. She'd scraped all this money together, but this $200 to copy each, to get from the county a certified copy of each one of her kids' certificates, put her over the moon. So we were able to help her with that, plus update her driver's license to secure self-sufficiency even more. And that is a grant that we gave for $419. We'll go to the next slide. And then sometimes it's utility. We run into women who are impacted by domestic violence and they want to sustain their employment, and sometimes pay the bill for the first time, because when you're in DVs, sometimes you are not aware of the bills. They get taken from you. You're pretty isolated. And in this case, we were helping her to get the utilities put in her name and build her independence. Thank you. And with this one, we just paid $20. Sometimes it's a very small grant. I know some of the ladies are just looking for a special work certification to help them get a raise at work. Sometimes it was access to a gym membership. One lady wanted to teach yoga and needed to get certified in order to do so, and she launched a business from there. And we'll go to the next one. And we hear a lot about cars, especially when women have broken out of domestic violence situations and they're on their own and they don't want to call that person back and have them fix the car. So taking that step for independence often means that they're responsible for their car repair. And this case was $290 for a car. I'll not forget this one because we have her picture on all of our flyers. She was so, her purse was stolen. She lost the key fob to her car was taken with it. And then her car tabs went out. It was just issue after issue kind of piled up, and she just sat in my office and cried. And then the day she got her key fob and the license plate for her car, she was so ecstatic. We happened to snap a picture at that time. It's great timing.
And it's amazing, just $239 just really put this woman over a huge hump that was insurmountable otherwise.
So through the Centennial Grant, what was lovely for us is while $5,000 may not seem like a lot, it leveraged a lot of money. We were able to use it as matching funds to get other funding from the community and serve 71 people. As Margaret said, average around $270 per person. And over 3 years, we've spent $50,000 helping over almost 200 people, women.
And there's that picture you were talking about.
Yeah, I'll never forget her.
Yeah, it was great. It's a great experience. So
I love the Zonta Club of Olympia. These are women who are just rolling up their sleeves, trying to make a difference for other women in our county, in our state, and in our world. And honored to be a member of this club.
is there any questions?
Well, thank you.
So I had a question, is Next Right Step just local, or is it, does it exist elsewhere in Washington state or around the country?
We are hoping that others are following our model, but we're just in our local community.
Okay.
Maggie, how much time does this take the local Zonta Club to work on this?
I've been the chair for the last 3 years, and we do special fundraising events for it as well as get donations. It's now part of our service committee, but it's not a lot of work getting it set up so that we all the funds that we get for NRS go directly to NRS. So it's a way for us to talk about a specific program and that's directly impacting people in our community only. And I'm not answering your question directly because it's hard to put a time on that. When we're building up for a fundraiser, there's a lot. I have a ceramic studio. I've held a number of fundraisers in my house. We're going to have a concert at a private home in August, COVID-19 permitting, and we have a couple bands that have volunteered to play there, and we're going to start promoting tickets. So that will be really reaching out to people that maybe aren't Zontians to help out, that want to help out, because this gives us a way to talk about what we're doing specifically as Zontians, and people that maybe aren't ready to commit to a membership can be a part of it.
And Maggie, if I can also offer, one of the things the Zonta Club did was partner with a nonprofit organization who's taking on the frontline work. So we're doing all the interviewing and the reporting and cutting the checks. And when we ask for an exception to rule if we have someone who has requested something outside of the boundaries, and then we go back to the club and talk through the case. The other thing the club members have done is not only give us that infrastructure, but reached out to the community to talk about the impact. And we have other service clubs who are contributing and helping us leverage other community dollars. Seroptimus, Altrusa, other folks are also contributing to the fund from our agency's perspective.
And another unique thing about the way we do it is that it's like flipping the grant process upside down. Shelley's organization bills us after the fact for it. So they know we have funds available, and then they invoice us. So rather than waiting 3 months, 6 months, a year to get some kind of reporting, every time she invoices us, we know what the dollars were used for and how she was stewarding our money.
We have a question in chat from Janelle Hankin from the Coos Bay Area Club, and that is, do the members meet the recipients? Do your Zonta members meet the recipients?
No, it's confidential.
Okay.
We have had a couple, like the ones you saw in the video, offer to tell their story or have their picture taken, but we do try to, these are women who are working professionally in the community and trying to take the next step, and we're trying to honor their privacy.
Excellent presentation, ladies. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Very inspiring, and I love the diversity that you're offering through the microgrant program. So thank you.
Mm-hmm.
So next up, we have the Zonta Club of Roseburg, Laura Jackson, to share with us information from their partnering agency, Douglas County Human Trafficking Task Force. Laura. Are you muted?
Okay. Yes, I'm unmuted now. Okay, so I have unstable internet, so there might be a time lapse between my voice and the actual slide. Is that working so far?
Yes.
Okay. Okay. So our Centennial Grant, we actually joined to do a program to teach our kids Teens Against Trafficking. I'm getting this really weird echo myself.
We don't hear it, Laura.
Okay. So the reason we applied is in Douglas County, most of our schools are actually near major trafficking corridors. We got I-5, 101, Highway 42, Highway 38. You drive down any of those roads, you're going to see our middle schools and high schools right adjacent to them. We also have a high rate of family-oriented trafficking in Douglas County. And the sad part is the kids get ensnared as young as 12 years old, and the victims are used multiple times, and as discussed earlier, generally only survive 7 years. So what we did is we paired with the Douglas County Human Trafficking Task Force in 2018 to apply for the Zonta Centennial Anniversary Grant. The grants were awarded in late July of 2019. So the goals of our program are to provide the students in Douglas County with knowledge and the ability to protect themselves from human trafficking. The way we want to do that is to get a preventative training and curriculum into at least 80% of our Douglas County middle and high schools, free at no cost to the schools. So we're using the In Our Backyards curriculum. It's Teens Against Trafficking. And the reason we're using it is because it meets the Oregon Health Standards, Title IX, Aaron's Law, and it's suitable for grades 6 through 12. To do this, we have 2 phases. Phase 1, we were bringing a survivor speaker presentation to the schools to help build community awareness, teacher awareness, so that people would know that we were going to be offering a curriculum to teach them more about human trafficking. Phase 2 would be the actual teacher and social service group trainings. And upon the completion of the training, you get a copy of the curriculum and a resource book for your own school to use. So the results of phase 1, we were able to give presentations to 4 different schools. 2 of them were alternative ed schools, 2 were very rural, and consequently, they were high-risk students. It varied, but we were teaching grades from 6th to 12th grade. We ended up reaching nearly 400 students and 20 teachers.
Excellent.
We were able to film one of the sessions to actually be able to provide copies for other schools in the future. We did a post-evaluation, and what we found is this presentation was very meaningful to the students, and we had over a 52% response rate, which is very good. So Sarah's story, our survivor, meant a lot to the Oregon students in particular, because she grew up in Bend, Oregon. Her dad was a policeman. Her mom was a real estate agent. So she came from an upper middle class education. And she actually got coerced into trafficking as she was working at the Lloyd Center prior to becoming a student at Portland State University. Her talk was actually only 20 minutes. She talked about the ease of which people are trafficked, and then the brainwashing that occurs. But then she was also an example of hope on the resources that are available to get out of trafficking and to help you reestablish your life. So with her 20 minutes, it then led into 40 minutes of questioning by the students, and they were very engaged. They had a lot of questions, and I admire Sarah's strength because the ability to answer those questions, a lot of which were very personal, just showed how much she grew as a person to gain to be a survivor. To do our evaluation of how this impacted the students, we gave them a bullseye survey, real simple. It basically asked, how did the presentation hit you and learning about the dangers of human trafficking? Was it a bullseye? So write a number 1 in the red bullseye of the target, or was it way out there on the fringes with the number 6? So what we found out first is that both the men and the women answered the question in a similar way. And so we actually tested this statistically and everything. And so you look at the pattern of the male and the female, both of them had number 1, so it hit them as a bullseye, as the highest response, with a number 2 as the second highest response, and then down to the more outer rings. Because they were similar in response, we were able to combine them. And what we found out overall, 70% of the students gave the presentation a score of a number 1 or a number 2. So those are the highest possible scores. Only 30% of the audience rated the program as average or below. And then one of the more interesting but valuable parts of the presentation is, in addition to bringing this presentation to the schools, we had warned them to have their counselors ready. We also brought our own advocate counselors so that students could talk to them. And we had multiple students, after hearing Sarah's presentation, become empowered to go seek counseling and talk about the abuse that they were facing. So we started phase 2, and we were going to have 2 days of training, 1 day in February and another day in March. And we had our first training the end of February. We had 30 people. We had over 8 schools and 5 youth services represented. Plus we had multiple members attend the presentation. It was a good training by Inner Backyard because I went over what the facility guides offer you so that you can teach this effectively, the learning outcomes, how you can set it up to be more effective, different discussion points that you can have so that the teachers that are going to have to teach their students could feel prepared for this. And they actually have PowerPoints for different age. So you got a PowerPoint presentation that's applicable for the 6th to 8th grade, the 9th to 10th grade, or the 11th to 12th grade. And through trial and error on their own, In the Backyard found that really having one session that's just 50 to 70 minutes long was the most effective way to do this. Because if you tried to have multiple modules over multiple days, and you're bringing up this topic that's extremely vulnerable to some of the students who might already be in some form being trafficked, it was just really hard. By concentrating it and having counselors available, it was just going to be more effective. So while the students are going through the presentation, they have a workshop so that they can keep notes, write down questions, and actually kind of an additional way to learn things because they're keeping track. And then both In Our Backyard and Zonta had post-evaluations. In Our Backyard wanted a 24-hour evaluation, and we wanted a 2-week evaluation just to see who do they talk to, do they still feel like they can avoid trafficking 2 weeks later. So some of the challenges that we had with the grant is we were originally hoping to get the survivor speaker in to the 2018-19 school year during the springtime and then roll into our training in the 1920 fall. But since the grants came in July, that wasn't possible. So our survivor speaker actually gave her presentation on December 12th and 13th, which was really good. It was the earliest we could get scheduled, but it happened right before the holiday break. So again, we were hoping to do a survey of the students, not only right afterwards, but 1 to 2 weeks afterwards to feel how they felt about it then and who they were talking to. And because school was out for until like January 6th, so 3-4 weeks, we were unable to do that. And then after our February training, as we all know, they ended up closing the schools March 16th here in Oregon. So none of the people who have been trained have actually implemented the program yet to teach their students. But we have some awesome things going on. If you think of the schools that we already gave the presentations to, the 8 that we've trained, we're already into 46% of our schools. In Our Backyard also gave us permission to film the next training. And what that means is that a task force member or a Zonta member can take the training, drive to a school that can't come to a centralized training. For example, Reedsport might not be able to come to Roseburg, provide them the training, and then they're eligible to get their curriculum, their resource manual, and be able to introduce it into their school. And with that ability, we should actually be able to train 100% of the county's 26 middle and high schools. So we're really excited about it, even though we're really kind of in a delay of action right now. So we do want to thank Zonta. We want to thank the Douglas County Human Trafficking Task Force. We want to thank In Our Backyard, because through this partnership and working together, we should truly be able to educate our kids in Douglas County, Oregon. Did that work?
Yes, it was excellent. Thank you.
Okay.
So we did have a question in the chat, Laura, for you from, oops, I just lost it, from Catherine. And that is, how can we access this curriculum and can it be used throughout the state of Oregon?
Okay, so In Our Backyard is actually being considered by the state of Oregon as the human trafficking curriculum for the state.
Excellent.
And so, yeah, you know, they're working on that, but individually, you can contract within your backyard to provide a training session, and then those people who are trained can teach the students.
How can
it's kind of weird because, like, say for example, I attended a training session. I can teach students, but I can't teach another trainer to become qualified to teach students, which is why that piece of them allowing us to film their training session is huge, because then we can go and train trainers without them having to contract within our backyard and schedule them to come.
Catherine, did you have another question?
Yeah, so it's the advocacy person in me says, okay, who should Oregonians, Zontians contact to support this curriculum in Oregon? Should they contact their local school board, the Department of Education? Where could advocacy happen to support this?
Great question.
You know what? I'll contact in our backyard and find out exactly who they've introduced the legislation with and get back to you guys on that. That's a really good question.
Great.
Any more questions for Laura? Thank you, Laura. That's an outstanding program. I'm so glad that Zonta could help a little bit with the $5,000 grant, and hopefully we can continue. I'm excited to continue to hear more from you about that. So last up, but certainly not least, is the Eugene-Springfield Club, and we will be hearing from Susan Dunn about Mobility International USA and the WILD program.
Yes, thank you. I'm just trying to get my slide up. Can you all see that?
Yes.
All right. Well, thank you. It's so great to be here with all of you this morning and to have an opportunity to share about the partnership between the Eugene-Springfield Club and Mobility International USA and our project, the Women's Institute on Leadership and Disability, which is also known as WILD. So I am the project manager for the WILD program, but I'm also a member of Zonta, I think, for the past 8 years. And we were really excited to get a Centennial Grant to support the WILD program because this program aligns so well with the ideals of Zonta. And it's a project that our club had been supporting for many years with grants and also with volunteer service activities. So essentially, WILD is a 3-week intensive training that brings together women with disabilities from around the world. And the training is held in Eugene, Oregon, and which we believe is a model city for diversity and inclusion and human rights. And the women who are selected for the program, they demonstrate leadership potential, but WILD is an investment in that potential that is going to trampoline them to the next level. So it's a very competitive program. We do an open call and we get applications. Last year we had 300 applications and we only had 22 women participate in the program. But I put up a map here to show the diversity of countries. We focus a lot on developing countries where there's the most need. And we did actually select 25 women to participate, but only 22 were able to come because of visa issues, which is very typical when women with disabilities are traveling. They get denied visas to the US. But let me introduce you to our WILD delegation. So we had 22 women. They had diverse disabilities. Some were blind or low vision. Some were deaf or hard of hearing. They also had learning disabilities or various mobility disabilities, which included polio, spinal cord injuries, muscular dystrophy, cerebral palsy, limb difference, and short stature. Collectively, they spoke 27 different languages and 9 different sign languages. The official languages of the program that we translated into was English and Spanish, and then we had sign language interpreters. So they had to be able to use at least one of those languages to participate. And then they also came from many different backgrounds and had expertise in law and policy, business, human rights. Some were working in youth empowerment, education, health, in the media, HIV and AIDS and violence prevention. And they were professionals working, some were with NGOs, some were specifically disabled people's organizations, which are organizations led by people with disabilities. Some represented academic institutions and government agencies, women's groups, youth groups, human rights organizations. So wide variety. The magic is sort of in the mix of diversity that we bring together for this program. So the WILD program, what is the model that we use? It's a program that offers women with disabilities the opportunity to build their capacity for leadership and strengthen international networks for support, for advocacy. And it also plants seeds for collaborative relationships. So all of this to advance human rights and opportunities for women and girls with disabilities worldwide. We have workshops where there's critical information on topics such as reproductive health, HIV/AIDS, violence prevention, inclusive education. And historically, a lot of this information has not reached women with disabilities. So a big part is enhancing knowledge on those issues. Another part is skill building. WILD does a lot of practical skill building, whether it's public speaking or learning how to advocate for policy change. They're learning cross-cultural communication, and they're also learning how to organize across disabilities. So they're coming together with women working with different types of disabilities. And then they also do action planning so that when they go home, they have a plan to implement. And so these are just some of the skills that we think were critical for leadership development. Another key principle of WILD is we're fostering the networks of support. It's a place for reciprocal exchange for women amongst themselves, but they're also learning how to build relationships with international development organizations. So one of the goals of WILD is when they go back that all of the community development programs that are happening in their community are also inclusive of women with disabilities. So they're learning how to build partnerships so that is a result. The WILD 2019 program, we had the schedule of activities we included were based on the priorities that the women identified. So we had various workshops on policy and legislation. We had the Women's Health, Wellness, and Safety workshop. We talked about utilizing the media, leadership, international development, professional development, and higher education, inclusive education, and parent advocacy. And then we also included another important part of WILD, which is the experiential learning, and we call them empowerment activities. But we really want women to push themselves and challenge society's preconceived notions of what they think is possible, and also what they think is possible for themselves. So we incorporate these empowerment activities that are meant for team building, confidence building, pushing boundaries, getting out of your comfort zone. A few of the pictures I included here on the slide are the Spencer Butte Ropes Challenge course that we do. We did wheelchair rugby, whitewater rafting on the Mackenzie River, yoga, adaptive cycling. And they also learn about U.S. culture because they stay with host families in the Eugene community. None of them are in hotels, so it's 3 weeks with host families. So specifically, Zonta's support was for our Women's Health, Wellness, and Safety workshop, the $5,000, and which is probably one of the most critical pieces of WILD and one of the most important issues for women with disabilities. The workshop focused on gender-based violence prevention, women's reproductive health, HIV/AIDS education and prevention, and included self-defense. The delegates, just to give you an idea of how this day went, we had them broken into small groups, and they rotated to different stations where they met with resource expert persons who were talking about these different topics. And the resource people were from our local organizations in Eugene. We have Planned Parenthood and Sexual Assault Support Services, Women's Space is our domestic violence shelter, and HIV Alliance. So they got the opportunity to meet with all those experts and discuss or learn information which they historically had not had access to, but also talk about strategies for making sure other women with disabilities in their countries were going to get this information as well. And then we ended the day with swimming at the Tamarack Aquatic Center, which is a fully accessible pool for people with disabilities. And women learned women had the opportunity to learn some swimming skills. Many of them had never been swimming before. So part of the swimming activity as an empowerment activity is building the positive body image, and also talking about how they could make this opportunity for women in their country to be able to do, as it promotes health and wellness. So the WILD program doesn't just stop after the 3-week training. After they finish the training, we then support them with small grants to go back and basically replicate the WILD experience for women in their community. So we support these community level trainings. We created a facilitator's guide so that they have a guidebook and modules depending on which workshop they wanted to create for the women in their community. And they really lead it and design it themselves too. But this guide is available in English and Spanish and French and Arabic. So we're trying to get it in as many languages so women can go back and use this resource. And just last month, I was getting in all the final reports from everybody about their community trainings. And it was just amazing to see what they were able to accomplish. And we only provided $1,000 to each woman. But they really leveraged the opportunity and were able to expand far beyond what we expected of them. They were able to find additional funding and get donations and in-kind support. Most of them did a 1-day training, but they had to reach 20 more women with disabilities. And they also developed a lot of relationships with partners in their community. So it really just multiplies the impact of the WILD training. So from us training 22 women, they went and trained 440 women with disabilities. And just some of the takeaways from their training, they got to choose which topic they wanted to focus on, and the most popular was reproductive health. A lot of workshops on family planning, prevention of breast cancer and cervical cancer, HIV/AIDS prevention. Also very popular as a topic was gender-based violence, and others focused on policy and legislation, disaster preparedness. There's actually a picture on the screen at the Philippines of them doing a disaster preparedness training. And then the other is a sexuality awareness workshop that was being held in Myanmar, I believe. And then they also got to choose their own empowerment activities. So depending on their context, they decide what would work best for women with disabilities in their community, but to build confidence and push boundaries. Yoga was very popular, easy, inclusive activity that women with all types of disabilities can do. Self-defense, many of the women chose self-defense, and then swimming for several countries. A lot of them also did sports, wheelchair basketball, wheelchair tennis, bocce ball, seated volleyball. Some were dancing, some were just going on a trip to the cinema with a group of women with disabilities was, pushing boundaries for a group of women who never go out in public together and are seen in public. So they got to choose what empowerment was to them. And one of the keys of sustainability of WILD is through the building of partnerships. So a requirement of them to get this $1,000 grant for their project was they had to partner with a non-disability organization that was involved in their workshop and training. So they were partnering with government, local, national, and international organizations, and especially women-focused organizations. So some of the partners in Myanmar, they were working with the National Center Against Violence and an organization on sexuality education services. Also in Cambodia, they were working with Hager International, which is a Swiss international organization focused on human trafficking. In the Philippines, they worked with the Disaster Risk Reduction Management Office. In Turkey, they were working with the Foundation for Women's Solidarity, and also partnered with UN Women, who also was a funder of their program. So they got a new funder from this. And in the picture on the right is Beyza from Turkey with the director of UN Women in Turkey, who came to her training and spoke. Also in the Philippines, which the picture on the left is a group picture of the WILD women in the Philippines who formed a partnership with the mayor. And so the mayor is in that group picture somewhere. And so just these partnerships will lead to future support, whether it's funding or other types of support. And I just wanted to share a little bit more about the UN Women Turkey experience. She had so UN Women helped by arranging the training room, the training materials, accommodations, and meals for participants. and helped publicize for the visibility of the training. And then the director came and spoke to their group. And in her speech, she emphasized the importance of all of us being the leaders in our own communities to bring the change, and her wish to keep working together to leave no one behind. And after the training, she expressed that she wanted to continue working with her, with Beza's organization, and that they should tell them about their plans for the following year. So I hope that this partnership will continue with UN Women. So I just thought that was a great outcome to share. And then finally, just WILD is really designed to have this ripple effect where we trained over 440 more women with disabilities who've joined this global family now. And these are just a collection of some of the photos of the group pictures from their trainings, which is just wonderful to see all these faces. And in both the WILD Eugene program and the community level WILD programs, we hear that women with disabilities are able to do things for the first time, whether it's the first time we're reaching women in rural areas who've never gotten this information, or the first time they're learning about a certain topic, whether it's self-defense or reproductive health, or it's the first time that women with disabilities are working cross-disability. A blind woman is now having to organize sign language interpreters to make sure deaf women are included in her training. And also the first time that women with disabilities are just coming together as a network. So I wanted to share just one quote from Anoush from Armenia about her experience organizing her own WILD training. She said, "The training was an incredibly empowering experience to both organize and implement. The participants were able to connect with other girls and women with disabilities and cultivate community and a network of support amongst each other." So it was just wonderful to see how they're all embracing our WILD motto, which is loud, proud, and passionate, our WILD theme. And just to see them moving forward in their professional and roles, it's in their community and as national leaders, world leaders. WILD's not only just building individual leadership, it's planting the seeds for those partnerships, and it's building this critical mass and a powerful network of women with disabilities globally. So I just want to thank Zonta. Our club was so proud to be able to host this training in our community, which has impacted the lives of so many women and girls with disabilities around the world. And I just think it's a very unique opportunity for Zonta to be part of advancing leadership and empowerment for all women, especially women with disabilities who are among the most marginalized. So, and just to let everyone know, we're planning the next WILD program for summer 2021 in Eugene. So I just want to thank for everyone's solidarity and support. And if there's any questions, I'd be happy to answer.
Excellent, thank you. Any questions? Got lots of nice comments on the chat screen. So way to go, thank you so much. You know, all 4 of these projects were so impressive. So keep up the good work, Zontians. I think we're doing great. Thank you.